Welcome to the Purpose for Life podcast. I'm Suzanne Roberts, your host, author of It's Deeper Than That, and I am so excited because my co-pilot has returned. We have Monu Singh here with us again today. Thank you, Monu, for being here.
So happy to be back.
We call it Wisdom Wednesdays because every other Wednesday you get 10 to 12 minutes of jewels of wisdom, and then every other week you get to listen to someone being interviewed. Today, what we're going to focus on is as above, so below. And before we get into that, I want to just always start with, what is this wireless system that we have going on inside of us as human beings? This wireless system that gives us the very gift of life and how to understand how life is moving inside of us and what's possible for us within this wireless design. So let's remember from the very beginning, the very first podcast about currency, that our heart cannot beat, we do not breathe without an energy current animating life for us inside of us. When that life force leaves the body, we call it death. So how does energy conduct? Energy always conducts between two poles. You have to have two poles for movement to happen. And there's a neutral gradient within those two poles, just like in a battery. So how does that battery operate inside of us as human beings? All of life has a primary source. A primary source that sends energy throughout all of creation, generously, benevolently, without thought, without bias. It's a magnificent outpouring of energy just because. And a drop of that outpouring, I call it the eternal ocean of love, whatever you want to call the source of life for all of creation. A drop of that is our essence. It's our own soul that becomes the positive pull that then sends through us. So inside of us, our positive pull, or the as above, is a soul, which is the drop of the eternal ocean of love that conducts energy through the physical form being the negative pull. So it sends energy benevolently and graciously, just like the source, without bias, through us to return to itself. And in the ideal pattern, the neutral gradient would be the mind being still so that the soul conduct the energy through us to return to itself. And in this way, we say, as human beings, we have the opportunity in this lifetime to know our own soul consciously through stilling our own mind. So when we look at as above, so below, we can look at so many different as aboves and so many different so belows, but all as aboves, whatever you determine your as above to be, will be what's sending the information. So when the souls are as above, it sends the information of the eternal ocean of love through us. When our mind can become still, it becomes the as below. So we become a reflection through ourselves to ourselves. We have direct access to the as above inside of us. And why is it crucial to determine our as above? I'm going to make it practical right now in two different ways. One is in an organization. When you're looking at shifting the culture of an organization, if the as above, the CEO, is not in alignment with the culture shift, it will never work. Because the CEO determines what's going to happen with the as below, within the management, within everybody, it filters down through the CEO. So that's why it's crucial to make sure you understand who the CEO is, what the CEO is, and not try to create initiatives that aren't going to work and are a waste of energy. I hope that makes sense to everybody, or it's like the principal of a school. So the school and the organization can only operate where the CEO, I mean, yes, great things can happen at a certain level, but a global shift within an organization will not happen without the CEO being on board. It just will not happen. And same with the principal of a school. I'll share a story with you. I was doing some volunteer work at a women's prison about empowerment and embodied empowerment. And asked me if I was willing to do the embodied work with the inmates. And I said, are you going to do the same work with your staff and your correction officers, or are you only doing it with the inmates? And she said, only with the inmates. And I said, absolutely not. Because if they get empowered in a way that is not in alignment with the correction officers, it will not work. It will backfire on them. So the correction officers and the warden would have to get embodied in the same kind of empowerment to support the empowerment in the inmates. So I wasn't going to put them at risk without determining that the as above was going to be in alignment. Before I switch to how that works inside of us, do you have any comments here, Monu?
Yeah, I think it's really my experience is really aligned with what you've explained, that the person who is leading the organization, I think, sets the tone and the culture that filters down to everybody else. And similar to your example of the women's prison, even if other folks in the organization may want something different, it's very, very difficult to make that happen when the leader or the as above is not in alignment with that.
And inside of us, let's look at what we might want and not want as our as above, because everything will organize around the as above. So I'm going to go with what we might not want. I'll use myself as an example. If my mind has a habit of thinking that I don't have value, that there is something really wrong with me, then I will refer everything to that. Every experience will get routed through my as above. Or if we're looking at who determines whether I belong or not, whether it's through my gender or religion or ideologies, if the world looks at me and says I don't value then that and then I make that the world my as above, then I will suffer. If I make my as above what's actually accurate, which I am already whole, I'm already holy. There is a drop of the eternal ocean of love inside of me. And if I refer to that, it helps me get my mind more still and more accurate instead of looping in my mind with something that is not actually true or in harmony with what's living inside of me. And Monu, what would you say about that difference when the mind can take over as the as above versus referring to our soul consciousness or our wholeness and our holiness as our as above?
Well, I think, like, if I look at myself, I can see that whenever something other than the soul and soul qualities are um, my my as above, whether it's the mind or whether it's other people's perceptions, my actions I always feel sort of slightly out of alignment. Something
Mm.
feels off for me. And the more um, I'm able to reorient and let the soul lead and follow what my soul is sending as when it is in the position of being as above, I feel like my actions are clearer. I feel steadier, regardless of what's going on around.
Mhm. You're not being determined by the outside. You're being guided from something inside of you.
Yeah, something that is actually more truthful, right?
Yes.
Something that is the truth. It's not even more truthful, it is the truth.
Yes.
And that has a real clarifying effect. It may not always be easy,
Right.
but the felt experience of it for me is infinitely better.
Absolutely. So, listeners, why is it important for you to determine your as above so that your so below can reflect what it is that you want it to reflect? Thank you for joining us here today in Purpose for Life podcast. Thank you, Monu, for being here as a co pilot. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll be back with you next week. We're signing off now. I'm Suzanne Roberts, your host and author of It's Deeper Than That. Thank you.